Hi, this is Dr. Kathleen Hallinan, and we're continuing our weight loss vlog. Today we're going to go over the difference between counting calories and counting carbs. You guys are great and you've had some really good questions, and one of the questions I got was about carbs. So we're going to go over the difference between what it means to count calories and what it means to count carbs. And I'll try to make it simple. There's so much information out there, it's very easy to get lost in the details. So if you're a lumper and not a splitter, which I kind of like, it means I kind of like to lump things together. So you kind of get that gist of this whole thing, and then you kind of are going to lump this together and get the gist of that whole thing. We're going to lump them into those two categories, either carb restriction or calorie restriction. Okay, so I'm going to show you examples of each one and explain why they work. So I have my board again, which I just cleaned off. So we're going to go over carb restriction first, okay? So carbs, and lots of times you'll see it as high protein, low carb. Everyone's touting protein. Everyone is on the bandwagon for high protein. So high protein, low carb, the examples of these, which I'm sure you're familiar with, are those in general. Atkins, South Beach, and Nutrisystem. For the most part, these are nutrition regimens that are high protein, low carbohydrate. What does this mean? It means that you get most of your food during the day from protein sources and also from vegetables that aren't very high in carbohydrates. So lots of green vegetables in general. And that you really, really restrict your carb intake. And if you're not trying really, really hard to restrict your carb intake, you're not doing it enough. It's very challenging to do, but it can be done. And why does this work? Because when you take in carbohydrates, what are carbohydrates? Stuff made with flour and sugar. So breads, pastas, all those things, those are high in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, what is a carbohydrate? Carbohydrates are just simple sugars attached to each other in a long string. So you can have a simple carbohydrate, short carbohydrate, that's easy for your body to break up into sugars. You can have a long carbohydrate or complex carbohydrate, and that takes your body longer and kind of more energy to break up into sugars to use as a unit of energy. Well, Dr. Atkins was right on the money. He understood that if you cut your carbohydrate intake to very low, kind of less than 20 to 40 grams a day, especially for the induction phase of Atkins, what does that tell your body? It tells your body that you are not going to be getting sources of easy energy for a while, and that you have to start using your own fat to create energy. So as you eat a diet that's mostly just protein and fat, and this kind of threw everyone for a loop, because he was saying exactly the opposite of what everyone else was saying at the time. He was saying basically it's okay to eat fats. You can eat meat and fat, and as long as you don't eat carbs with it, guess what? You will put yourself into a state of what's called ketosis, meaning you don't put out any insulin. And insulin is the hormone that tells your body store energy. We're getting energy, so store it. So now you shut that off and you release something called glucagon. Glucagon starts coming up into your system. Glucagon is the hormone that says we need to burn energy. We need to burn our own fuel sources for energy. So glucagon starts telling you to take sugar out of your liver and use that for energy. And also it starts telling you to burn your own fat. And what that does is it produces something called free fatty acids. They are a source of energy for you. And a breakdown product of that is called ketones, which you can actually measure in your urine if you're really motivated to do this. You can get ketone sticks at the drugstore and measure ketones in your urine. And if you see that you are having ketones coming out in your urine, you know you are in a state of ketosis. So this is why actually high protein, low carbohydrate diets work. They make you burn your own energy. Now, the caveat here is that if you by mistake overdo it and eat more carbohydrates than you should, then you will turn on insulin production and you will absorb and just absorb all the energy you just ate, including all the meat and the fat and all that. So it really means that you have to really restrict your carbohydrate intake. And I would highly recommend anyone that wants to do it to actually get the South Beach book or get the Atkins book, and or buy the Nutrisystem stuff if you so are so inclined. And but you really need to educate yourself, know how many grams of carbs you are limited to for the induction, the beginning phase, and usually there's a kind of next step phase where you slowly reintroduce a little bit of carbohydrate. Um, Read the books so that you really have a thorough understanding, because I've had people think that all they could do is to do this is just go out and buy packaged Atkins foods, and that's what would work for them. But you still really have to count how many grams of carbohydrates. You can overdo it even if you eat too many Atkins stuff. Um, so don't go into it just kind of blindly that way. Make sure you go ahead and read the books. And but that's how Atkins and South Beach work, and that's how Nutrisystem works. And of course, the interesting thing with this that people don't realize is that when you restrict your carbohydrate intake, immediately you will put out a whole bunch of fluid. And that's why Nutrisystem can say, we'll make you lose 5 pounds in a week, because you pee out probably about 5 pounds of fluid. So for every gram of carbohydrate you take in, your body holds on to much more water than it would for a gram of protein. And people don't realize how much fluid retention is caused by the carbs, but I guarantee you, try a few days with mostly protein, hardly any carbs, and you will put out a bunch of urine. If you carb load, you will get boggy. You'll feel your fingers swell up, and you'll know it. If you are at all sensitive to retaining fluid and you have a bunch of carbs, you'll know you're retaining fluid. So play around with this. That's the high protein, low carb approach. And next time we'll go over the straight calorie restriction approach. But I wanted to make sure everybody understood how the Atkins strategy works. And great questions, you guys. You're doing awesome. Keep up your exercise. Make sure that it's you have to be sweaty and disgusting at the end of your exercise for it to count. So keep up the good work. And the questions have been really good, and I've been trying to answer them as much as I can. Sorry for the delay on the questions, but I hope you're all doing well. So, all right. Thank you.